the way you dress does have an impact on how the world around you sees you, how they react to you, how they behave and treat you, can get you ahead or can at least give you a little head start, certainly in first impression stakes, and then it's up to you to kind of fill in the gaps after that.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand.
How we dress is an extension of how we express ourselves and also how we want people to feel about us. Of course, that's a big part of our personal brand. After all, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And by the way, that quote has been attributed to both Oscar Wilde and Will Rogers. Don't know who it actually belongs to, but today's guest embodies the meaning of that every day. Roberto Revilla joins us today, and he is the founder and Tailor-In-Chief of Roberto Revilla London. He's also the producer and host of Tailoring Talk Podcast.
Roberto, welcome to Be Bold Branding.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, a blessing, and a privilege, and it's so good to see you both again.
So good to see you. I was going to say, you see why we love this guy right here, Ever the Gentleman. Roberto's great, and you're going to get a chance to get to know him a little bit better here, and I'm sure you will like him just as much as we do. Roberto, tell everybody what motivated you to move into the space that you're in now, like into the tailoring business, the clothing business.
I don't think it was by design. Basically, I just kind of stumbled and fell my way into it. I mean, I've always had in clothing from a very early age. I was a very fast growing child, so I've been 6 feet tall since I was about 11, 12 years old with a size US 12 shoe. That gave me no advantages really whatsoever, aside from always getting picked first for, school basketball and stuff like that. But otherwise, to everybody else, I was a complete freak. To my parents, who were not very well off and were always kind of, struggling to make ends meet, I was a big problem because they just couldn't afford to keep buying me new clothes all the time. And I grew up sort of tail end of the 80s and through the 90s. And if you remember the 80s, we'd come off the back of the 70s, which was all flares and big collars and so on. And go into the 80s where it's all, well, apart from shell suits, the 80s was all about kind of going narrower with trousers and pants and things. And so, my mum's solution to, this kid keeps growing out of his clothes problem was to basically go dig out my dad's stuff that he used to wear when he was in his 20s in the 70s and stick me in that to go to school. So I just used to get, kids to just beat the hell out of me all the time. So I had to kind of sneak into my mum's sewing room and sort of start cutting things up and trying to badly stitch them back together in order to make my clothes pass and reduce the number of beatings that I would get. This is suddenly taken a very dark turn and we're only a few minutes in. I'm so sorry. And I started to realize that the way you dress does have an impact on how the world around you sees you, how they react to you, how they behave and treat you. And, that kind of stayed with me as I got through my teens. And when I got my first paid part-time job, all of my money went on clothes. We call it bunking off over here, a bit like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is what they call it, what we call it.
Hooky. Right. Okay. Yeah. Hooky here means something else, which I won't go into, but you can probably get
another podcast.
Yeah, that's another podcast. BrandFace late night. So I'm sorry, I've completely ruined your this episode. I used to play hooky from college and just go clothes shopping with whatever money I was earning at the weekend. And I started, when I was able to dress for myself, I started to feel like one of the cool kids because I was able to buy the brands that they were all wearing and dressed like, the cool kids at college and stuff. Then when I got into my 20s, I basically just couldn't get a job in the tailoring industry. It was really difficult here in London. So I ended up in an IT company, but I always used to wear three-piece suits. So everybody was dressed down. I was the youngest person in the organization and they took a chance on me and I was constantly having to prove myself until I proved myself. But until that time, I had to dress over and above everybody. I basically decided I was going to dress like the CEO or better than the CEO. And it meant when big customers would come in looking for systems, they would kind of look through the glass at all the salespeople sitting behind, and then they would point to me and say, I want him to come serve me. And it's because I just looked like I knew what I was doing, even though I was only about 19 at the time. And so that again reinforced my view that the way that you dress can get you ahead, or can at least give you a little head start, certainly in first impression stakes. And then it's up to you to kind of fill in the gaps after that. And then I got a break, funny enough, actually, with a US tailoring firm who just started a few years before in Europe. And it was a visiting tailors. And I thought I'll go there and give it a go. And 7 years later, I got to be one of the top clothing sales professionals in Europe and one of the top clothing sales professionals worldwide. And then after 7 years, the 2008 crash happened. The world just got turned upside down. And so I and 4 other colleagues of mine, we decided to go off and start our own thing. Did that for 2 years. They then kind of relied on me to do all of the sales while they went off and played golf. And I said, guys, this isn't working out. I really want to launch my own brand. And coming from a line of people who work for themselves, it was probably inevitable. And then in 2011, I started my own company. And here we are today.
I love it.
I do too. I love the story of, everybody has a story that really connects back to what you're doing. And, I don't think I realized until just a couple of years ago exactly how my story related directly to what I'm doing. But you can look back and say, oh, I know exactly what it is. Like, I was beaten up at school. I was different from everybody else. I was behind. I was not modern. I was, I didn't feel like them. It really impacted your self-worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like if you ever see the Transformers movies, you remember Bumblebee, who starts off as a battered old Beetle, and then he changes into that awesome bright yellow Camaro with the black stripes, that race car, muscle car. That's basically me. I was Bumblebee growing up. I was a beat up old Beetle. And then I like to think I transfer myself into a muscle car. So,
Yeah. Well, we think you're a muscle car. So that's right. From what we've got to know you and the times that we've met with you. So that it's awesome. And I do agree with Tanya, like the background story of why we do the things that we do and what puts us in those space. We start with that a lot of times because it is so important, especially to people, highly successful people like you that now get to do what you love to do. Right. But you can look back and say, oh, all these different things happened that led me to where I was going anyway and put me into that space and built your personal brand off of that. That's really fantastic and so necessary in your line of work.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's a part of the story I actually missed out because it wasn't actually my intention to go into tailoring originally. Even though I majored in art and design and so on, and I always had this interest in fashion. But when I came to the end of 4 years at the technology firm and I decided it was time for me to go try find something else, Headhunter found me, and I don't know what they were headhunting me for because he didn't actually have anything for me, but I guess he just needed to get another applicant on his books. I said to him, well, yeah, I'm looking for a new role. What have you got? And the one thing he did that actually was really good looking back is that he said to me, what makes you tick? What are you passionate about? And I said to him, I just love helping people. So he said, okay. And he came back to me after a week and he said, I've got 3 possible roles for you to go interview for. The first is fits right in your wheelhouse of helping people. And he broke it down. He dripped it to me so slowly. So I got so excited. He really built it up. It was like, so you get a 30,000 basic, which at the time was like, oh my God, amazing. Like I'm from a really poor neighborhood in London. So it's like 30,000 a year. It's like, whoa. And I was like, okay, cool. Right. I'm interested. You get a company car. Oh my God, I get a company car. That's so awesome. Next, you go around to people's homes and you help provide them with end-of-life care solutions. And I was like, okay, that sounds like really fancy words for like stair lifts or something. And he was like, that's exactly what it is. And I was like, okay, I like helping people, but that's not really my idea of,
That wasn't the helping I was thinking of.
That wasn't the helping I was thinking of. So, and I'm really
sorry to be more specific. See, guys, it pays to know exactly what you want to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To articulate it.
So I was like, next. He was like, number 2 was working for Hewlett Packard, and it was in marketing rather than sales. And then the third one was the visiting tailoring thing. And I was like, well, actually, that sounds really unusual. And that sounds like something that I'd like to investigate. So that's what I did. But I think the important point there is that the whole helping people thing is really my kind of raison d'etre, if you like, because whatever I've done, whatever I'm doing, I can't remember if I told you guys when you were guests on my podcast that during the pandemic, our business got shut down. And in that moment, not knowing what the future was going to hold, I basically decided to see who was hiring so I could just bring some extra cash to put on the table to pay some of the bills, and then kind of give myself some thinking space to figure out what I was going to do or how I could pivot to survive this thing that we were all going through. And so Uber Eats, Deliveroo, all of these food delivery companies were hiring, and I have a scooter and I have a driving license. And so I applied to all of them and I got jobs at all of them. And I basically worked from the crack of dawn until 1, 2 in the morning, every single day, 7 days a week, on next to no money. I mean, some nights I was lucky if like on a good night, I'd earn maybe 15, 16 bucks an hour. Most nights like $5 an hour. I mean, you're talking like, this is, my time is worth somewhere between $350 to $1,000, depending on season, day, etc. So this is like a huge pay cut. But, again, in the spirit of, my thing about helping people no matter what I'm doing, I completed over 3,000 food deliveries over that period. And I have a 100% perfect 5-star rating. Because of my attitude, my approach to it, I got so many cash tips from people as well, because they were just like, hang on a minute, you're not a normal delivery driver. Like most delivery drivers just turn up and just throw the food at the doorstep and go. And like, you're there. Hi, how are you? I hope you're having a great day. I've got like your food came straight off the grill and into my hot bag. So it's as fresh as if you were sat in the restaurant. I'm going to leave it right here so that you can open it safely, enjoy your dinner. And, if you give me at least a rating, I'd be so happy. And they were just like, you're just not a normal delivery driver, are you? And I was like, no, I'm a tailor. My business is closed at the moment. So I'm just doing this to try and make ends meet while I figure out what I do. And I got so much goodwill out there. But again, I got as tired as I was, because good boy, is it an exhausting job. I did get so much satisfaction and joy out of it because it helped me to see a different side of life. I got to still serve people. And also I got to meet a lot of the other riders and drivers and learn their stories and speak to people from a complete other walk of life and spend time with them to try and help them as much as I could with whatever struggles they were going through. And, you ended up building, I became known as the lost key guy because I would always lose my keys. Like loads of us would be in a pizza place with our bags, like, okay, yeah, I'm order number 364. And then I'd run out. And then I'd run back in and I'd be like, has anyone seen my keys? And usually I'd end up dropping my keys like in the pizza or something. So that sounds really terrible. And so I was known as lost key guy within the community. So every time I whizzed past someone, they'd be like, hey, lost key guy, you got your keys? And I'd be like, yeah, I wouldn't be riding it. Anyway, sorry. I'll slow down now.
Y'all see why we love this dude?
Yes.
But I got to say, Roberto, that is you. The core, we teach in personal branding, the authentic person, and how important that is and how you apply that. And it just shows, again, because you're a magnificent human being, right? And you got just the way you're dressed even now is just I feel like completely underdressed. I'm like, Tanya, is this shirt okay? She's like, it's all right to match my jacket, sort of. And I'm like, and then Roberto shows up like this and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have put a jacket on. And, but you have that je ne sais quoi, if you will, but also you're totally humble enough to care what other Uber drivers are doing. And I think that is unbelievably commendable, especially in the world that we live in today, that you apply that kind of care, skill, honesty to everything that you do. And to me, for a tailor, like somebody that you're going to go to and say, hey, make me a better me, like present me in the best light possible. I can't imagine a better quality. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it all began when, I think it was Michael's grandpa that said, dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Yeah.
This is real.
So we just hit spring today, so it's kind of hit like 16, 17 degrees for the first time in months, and so it's nice and warm in London. And what's happening at the moment is all the foxes and all the cats are out swarming the neighborhoods, and obviously this kind of centuries old love-hate relationship between cats and dogs is all going off. So I really, really apologize for that. Authenticity.
Yes. And we can segue into this story because I'd like to hear it. Like, you've been referred to as the rock and roll tailor. So do you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Oh, wow. So that was back in, I think it was 2012. So it was over 10 years ago. And Shortlist magazine, who were the biggest free publication in the United Kingdom at the time, apparently there was a story doing the rounds. They used to do this kind of annual thing called the Brit List, which is like the Oscars of the magazine world, where they would look for people in different fields, acting, music, celebrity chefs, and so on, and just look for people that were doing things that were just kind of bucking the trend, the upstream swimmers. Mm-hmm. And so apparently they were looking at the clothing category, and the story goes that they were asking around the industry, and then the editor overheard someone talking about this absolute nutcase of a tailor that went around on a 500cc three-wheeler with an Akrapovic modified exhaust. You could hear the guy coming from like 3 miles away. He used to wear like a black helmet, but was dressed in a full 3-piece suit with the tie pin and everything. And that was me, by the way, in case you're wondering. And so they got in touch with me, and I went in to speak to them, and they said, we want to name you as, one of our men making the future. And I was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Like, we'd only been going for 12 months at the time. And so I was like, okay. So they said, is there anything in particular that you're known by? And I was like, well, no, like I'm known as Bobby to my friends. And they were like, that's a bit boring. So yeah, so when it was published, and there's my picture right in between people like John Boyega, who you know from Star Wars and, Detroit and all these other great things that he's done, and Charlie XCX, who on the music scene is absolutely massive. And then there's just little old me kind of sandwiched in between those two. Now, in comparison, their careers have gone stratospheric, and I'm still here in London. But anyway, they said the rock and roll tailor, Roberto Revilla, and I was like, man, he sounds so cool. Oh, it's me. But that's where it came from. And, since, everyone I come across, whether it's a client, whether it's my friends, family, other people in my industry, they all think I'm absolutely nuts because I use all modes of transport. I cycle, I drive, still ride a scooter. I will literally put myself at risk for my clients. I really don't care. I don't think about myself. All I think about is making sure that I'm giving 5-star service to everybody. There was one time when I got run through the back by a plant truck. The guy was on his cell phone. He turned a corner. I was waiting in the middle of the road at a crossing to let people cross. Something hit me. I blacked out. I came to. I see this tire tread just bearing down on my head, pushing me along. Thank God the back box on my bike was kind of slowing him down, and people were screaming at him, there's someone under your truck. There's someone, you got to stop. And I managed to pull myself out from underneath, took photographs, shouted at the guy. The adrenaline was really going through, but all I could think about was I'm going to be late for my 8:30 appointment, and it's 8:27. So I called the bike repair shop that services my bike, and I said, listen, my bike is a mangled mess on New Cavendish Street. Can you come pick it up? And I'll be in touch later. And then I jumped in the taxi, got to my appointment. I was 5 minutes late, apologized to my customer. There was blood, tears in my suit and everything. And I said to him, I'm so sorry. And he said, what happened? And I said, I got hit by a truck. Anyway, let's get you back on track because I know you've got a meeting at 9 o'clock. And he's like, whoa. He said, sit down a second. Like, just wait up. Like, you just got hit by a truck? What the hell? But I was still like, no, you've got a 9 o'clock meeting and I'm late. So let's get you back on track and get you sorted out. So this is what I prepared for you. And I just went through we had the biggest day in our company's history to that point. And then about 2 weeks later, the adrenaline wore off. And then I was hospitalized.
Wow.
That is commitment.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That is above and beyond.
I tell anybody that has got any doubts over our customer service capabilities, I say, go find yourself someone who will literally die for you. You won't find it.
You will not find somebody that will get run over by a truck.
That is a massive point.
Make
That's right. Yeah.
and get that guy to his appointment. That is awesome.
Massive point of differentiation right there.
For
guys.
sure.
Right there.
Yeah, that's a brand, folks.
Yep. So pulling us back into the personal branding world for a moment. Okay. We work with a lot of people all over the world in various different industries, and they all have one thing in common. They all want to look great. They all want to look and feel great. But what if you have no clue what your true style is? Where do you even begin to know that?
Whoa, let me try and answer this without.
Because a lot of people only know what they've worn in the past. And that's usually like, how their moms dressed them when they grew up or how their friends are dressing, right?
Yeah.
But they've never begun to have a sense of their own style.
So I think the starting point is to take advice and find someone that you can trust. And if you don't know anybody, then ask around. So go speak to friends, family of yours that you think have got it together and always seem to look great. And then when you find that person, be open and honest with them and tell them, how you felt in the past and how you want to feel. Where you've been deficient. It's a bit like when you go see, I guess, a personal trainer for the first time. You tell them, I can never lose these love handles and I want to get bigger shoulders and, tone my abs and my ass and whatever. I don't know because I've never been to one.
Pretty common.
Yeah. But then they'll sit there, I would guess they would sit there making notes and they would say, okay, well, this is where we need to start you off. We need to get your fitness to this level. And then, these are the exercises we need to start to work on to kind of work on those areas that you feel deficient. And that's pretty much a similar, approach that any professional clothier should take with an individual and just guide them gently. I never believe in dictating to someone. And sadly, in our industry, that happens a lot. People will often, and it's kind of counterintuitive because we're meant to be about tailoring, and tailoring is about customization and personalization. But so often in my industry, people try to take the easy way out. I call them burger flippers because basically they just want to try and provide the same solution to as many people as possible because it's the easiest thing to do. You want to find someone who's going to treat you as an individual who, before they even start talking about styling or clothes, is going to take the time to find out and get to know you as an individual, get to know what makes you tick, how you want the world to see you, where there are areas where you don't feel so confident that you would like to feel more confident in. Know your likes and dislikes, and then take all of that information and then start to handhold you and then guide you towards a destination where eventually you'll get dressed every morning and you will feel like an absolute freaking superhero and you'll be able to take on the world. Mm-hmm. But I think it does start with actually seeking that advice in the first place.
I like that. How about a little definition for us? Like, is there a difference in a bespoke and a tailor, and where do you find yourself in that arena?
So largely, you have three choices when it comes to clothing. You either buy off the rack, so the clothing is there, it's made in a factory to a certain size, and it either fits you or it doesn't. And then you can take off the rack clothing to a local tailor who will be able to do small adjustments. They might be able to hem your legs or shorten your sleeves a little bit or nip and tuck things here and there just to make your off the rack clothes look a little better. And that's a really great solution for people who aren't at the income level of being able to afford semi-custom or full custom clothing. Then you have made to measure clothing, which is a step on from off the rack clothing, where it's still made in a factory to block sizes, but it's designed to fit you better than an off the rack. So, they'll maybe look at you, Michael, and trying to work it out from the camera here, but they might say, okay, so Michael's closer to a 44 to 46 off the rack. So we're going to kind of put him in this block, and then we're just going to adjust the integers of each part of the seat to try and fit him a little bit better and get a bit closer. And then you go bespoke, which is what I do, where the clothing doesn't exist. It is literally built from the ground up with you in mind and you only. So every single part of your body, your figuration, differences in your shoulder inclines, this curvature of your spine and so on, all of that is measured, taken into account so that when we're building clothing for you, it's not only fits perfectly, but it's also designed to put you in your absolute best light. So if we need to level you up because you're a little bit lopsided, which most people are, or you want to look a little bit slimmer, or, I've got this flat seat issue, like my ass is a little bit flat. So I need to cut things a certain way to give my butt a little bit more shape. My wife was listening to this, she'd be creasing up laughing. So yeah. And when you're in it, you don't feel it. Off the rack and made to measure clothing fights against you because often it's machine stitched, and because it's not been built with your nuances in mind, it fights against you when you're moving in it. Whereas a good bespoke piece of clothing built with you in mind is a second skin. So like right now, I'm sitting here in front of you. I'm wearing, if anyone's just listening to this and can't see, but I'm wearing a tie bar with a tie clip, with a waistcoat, and then I've got a heavy tweed jacket on over the top. The truth is, I can't feel any of it because it just moves with me. I could keep this on 24/7, wouldn't bother me at all. So I hope that's answered the question.
It did. It absolutely
best
did.
definition between those I've ever heard. That's awesome.
For sure.
Okay, we're down to the last 3 questions, and we'll be sad to see you go. So, what one piece of advice would you give people about personal branding?
Go to BrandFace and
that's a wrap. We're done. This kid.
If you can't go to BrandFace, then download or buy their book. And then after that, I think what you need to do, it starts with really working out what your superpower is. So I know that my superpower is helping people and caring for them and doing my best to empathize and try to put myself in their position to see things from their point of view, and then do everything that is in my power to try and make life easier and better for them. That's my superpower. Yours might be different, but it's working out what your superpower is, whether it's building relationships or your superpower is talking to strangers or whatever, I don't know. And then once you've worked out your superpower, everything that you do from there needs to demonstrate that both visually and in the actions that you take. And it needs to permeate through every part of your business. Now, obviously, I'm slightly nervous saying that because I'm in front of you two branding masters. And I don't know if that answer has shown that I've actually learned anything from you at all in our previous conversations. But I think that's what it is for me. It's about staying true. So, you know, if I may give a personal example from recently, I've really struggled with my social media presence. I've really struggled with it. In my industry, it seems to mostly be about lifestyle images and fancy shots of models and people sitting there reading the Times and sipping an espresso. And that's never really been me. I grew up pretty much in the gutter and had to pull myself out and work my way up. And the way that I did that was not to be deceitful in any way. It was just to be raw and as open and honest as I could with anything that I was doing. And, you know, it's like when people come to me and say, can you teach me how to tie a bow tie? I was like, I don't know how to tie a bow tie. And they're like, what? You're a master tailor? And I'm like, so what? So what? I didn't grow up in an environment where a bow tie was even a thing. I didn't know what a bow tie was until I saw my first James Bond movie. And so with social media, you know, the one thing with it, because I was trying to do a bit of that lifestyle stuff, it was already inconsistent because my heart wasn't in it. And then recently I thought, you know what? I'm not doing this BS anymore. This is just nonsense. I'm being told left, right, and center to hire lifestyle photographers and get all these beautiful models and stuff. It's not real. It's not me. So I recorded a video. It was 60 seconds, just a reel on how to do something, some element of clothing, but not just how to do it, but also the history behind it. So I posted one this morning about why people monogram their shirts. And I gave a little bit of history, and then I gave the practical. And that video, it got like 19,000 views, which is more than I've got on any reel. Usually they're like 50, 60 views or something. And okay, in the grand scheme of things, that might not be much to some influencers, but for me, that was great. And the response I got was the main thing. A lot of people started saying, these short videos you're making are really helping me, and I'm having fun with them, and I'm learning. And I was thinking, every single time they said that, it was pushing the buttons of my superpower, helping
someone.
Yep.
Yes, you nailed it. You nailed it. And your answer to discovering your superpower and then developing, you know, the things that go with that superpower to present that to the world and letting it permeate through everything that you do. Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on.
And in living proof. Yeah, because that is who you are. And that's coming out to people.
It is.
And I think in the world that we live in, I think real is something that is refreshing to people. So, yeah.
I think the problem is a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this for a lot of my career, is that a lot of people, they try to be something to everybody, especially when they're starting a business as well and they're trying to grow a business. They feel they have to fit in with every type of personality and they need to be able to serve everybody. And I said it to someone recently on another podcast and they said I was a genius, but I described it as taking everything and trying to be something to everyone is like slow acting poison. It might seem like it's the right decision at the time, but you're actually causing yourself harm and damage further down the line. Slow acting poison. You got to be careful what you go out there and eat. And, you know, like I found with this Reels thing that I'm able to post these little short videos on LinkedIn and so on as well. And again, the feedback that I'm getting is exactly what I want to hear, that people feel that they're not customers of mine. Some of them probably never will be, but they're being helped. And that's the main thing. And so I think, you know, people who are listening to this that are really struggling, you know, stay true to yourself. Don't worry that you can't serve the whole world. It's impossible. And there's plenty of other people out there that will be able to help those people. There's plenty there for all of us, whatever we do. And don't worry about if people don't like you for who you are. They're not the types of people that you want to be working with. #mytribe. Isn't it better to build a community in business of people who are a little bit more like-minded and to look at your calendar every day and almost feel like all you're doing is just going and serving your friends all the time? Isn't that
absolutely
better than,
it's,
you know,
that's quality of life.
Yeah,
it is.
Exactly.
It absolutely is.
No question about it.
Yep. All right, Roberto, we could talk to you forever. You know that already.
Yeah, no,
We're going to
I'm
ask
so
you another.
sorry.
No, that's not a complaint. I wish we had the time to. I want to ask you another question. If our listeners have the freedom to visit anywhere in the world, what place would you recommend to them and why?
Can I do two?
Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
Okay, so I would say, actually, no, I can't. I love our planet. I can't choose between anywhere. I'm so sorry. I would say go find like the most beautiful beach and ocean that you can when you need to take time out for yourself. The Maldives is wonderful. I heard that they're going to disappear underwater at some point in the next decade. So just go while you can. So yeah, I'd say the Maldives. It's just a magical place. And then for a city, I don't know, like maybe people in the States are going to hate me for this. You know, one of the most inspiring cities in the world to me is New York. I don't know what it is about that place, but you go there and you just feel like you can do anything. I think it just brings all facets of the American dream together in that one place. And I'm sure you could probably say similar things maybe about LA and Chicago and San Francisco and so on, but I haven't been to any of those unfortunately yet. But New York just does it for me. Every time I go there, I feel like there's nothing that I couldn't achieve. Yeah, it's just magical. So New York and the Maldives.
I like it.
Great answers.
Both of them are great.
Great answers.
Yep.
What's the best way for people to reach you if they want to be dressed by Robert Revilla?
The easiest way is to just Google my name and I just come up everywhere. And you can also find me on Instagram at Roberto Revilla London, where I post all of my how-to reels nowadays. And you can DM me there. But yeah, just Google my name and I come up. I'm everywhere, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it. And get in touch with me. I'll talk to anybody, whether you want to work with me or not. If I can help you in any way, shape, or form, just don't be afraid to reach out.
Roberto, you are a class act, and we are proud to call you our friend. So thank you very much for being on our podcast.
Absolute privilege. And I'm so glad I got to spend half an hour, 40 minutes listening to both of your accents again. Because
Likewise.
What accent?
what accent? Yeah, exactly. That drawl does it for me every single time.
Well, I look forward to the day that I get on the plane and I fly to London and you make me a suits with the
Cannot wait.
Yes.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.